All right, welcome to the explainer. Sometimes you see all these different headlines and they feel totally disconnected. But what if I told you they're all part of one big story, like a chain of dominoes? Today, we're going to follow that chain, see how one single number, just one piece of data, started a shockwave that's now rocking everything from the White House right down to your wallet. And it all starts right here. 73,000. That's it. Just a number, right? But this is the first domino. This is the little push that gets the whole thing started.
So what is it? That's the number of new jobs the U.S. economy added. Just 73,000. And wow, was that a huge miss from what everyone was expecting. This one data point, this is the spark that lit the fuse for the huge economic and political firestorm we're about to talk about.
Okay, so that brings us to our first big piece of the puzzle, the sudden jobs shock. And trust me, that 73,000 figure, that was just the tip of the iceberg. When you dig into the details behind that headline number, it actually gets even more concerning. First, they went back and revised the numbers from the months before, and they revised them down. So the job market was already weaker than we thought. Then you see that layoffs shot up to the highest level we've seen since 2020, and for the first time, we're seeing something new being blamed. Reports are citing AI as a reason for thousands of entry-level jobs just disappearing. And that's hitting new grads the hardest. All right, domino number 2, the political firestorm. Because in Washington, a bad economic number isn't just a number, right? It's ammunition. And this jobs report immediately kicked off a massive, high-stakes political fight. And this is where things get wild. The central event was pretty stunning. The head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the BLS, was reportedly fired. Now you have to understand, the BLS is supposed to be totally independent. They're the neutral scorekeeper for the economy. To fire the person in charge right after a bad report comes out, that's a move you almost never see. The Nobel Prize-winning economist Joseph Stiglitz put it perfectly. He said it's like driving a car with no odometer. And that really gets to the heart of it. Without data you can trust, everyone from investors on Wall Street to the folks at the Federal Reserve, they're all suddenly flying blind. And the fallout came fast. The president was reported to have called the numbers a scam. The White House put out a call for fresh eyes on the data. And that immediately led to experts warning about the risk of cooking the books. All of this political chaos puts another really important group, the Federal Reserve, in a terrible spot. How are you supposed to steer the economy when the dashboard in front of you might be broken? But here's the thing. This political drama isn't happening in a vacuum. It's not the only pressure cooker. So what happens when you throw two more huge forces into the mix? Brand new trade wars and the constant disruption of AI. And that leads us right into our next section, tariffs, AI, and your wallet. Because these two massive forces were already putting a major squeeze on the economy. So let's take tariffs first. The impact here is just huge, and it's happening right now. Take a company like Apple. They projected a hit of $1.1 billion from these new tariffs in a single quarter. It's pretty clear that in this particular trade battle, they're on the losing end. But there are always two sides to a trade war. And in a total flip, the CEO of U.S. Steel called those very same tariffs a boom for America. It's the perfect example of how these policies don't affect everyone the same way. They create very clear winners and very clear losers. So how does this actually affect you? Well, here's where it hits your wallet. Experts started warning that the tariffs being put in place over the summer were going to make your holiday shopping in the winter a lot more expensive. Why? Because those extra costs for things like electronics and clothes, they get passed right on down to us, the shoppers. Okay, then you've got that second big disruptor, AI, and man, is it a technology of contrasts. On the one hand, you have these incredible stories, AI robots helping out on small farms, algorithms that can scout the next big soccer star. But on the other hand, like we just talked about, it's replacing jobs. And its mistakes can be so serious that we've seen judges actually have to retract their legal rulings because of an AI error. It's this incredible force of both amazing promise and really serious disruption. So let's take a step back. You've got all this chaos swirling around. A weak jobs report, a political firestorm, new tariffs, and AI is shaking things up. The big question is how on earth are the financial markets making sense of all this? Which brings us to domino number 4, the market's mixed signals. Because with all this uncertainty in the air, investors are scrambling to find somewhere safe to put their money. And what they're doing is sending some really fascinating and kind of contradictory signals. Okay, first up, the classic flight to safety. Look at gold, trading way up around $3,355. This is what happens when investors get scared about the economy. They run to what they see as safe haven assets. And gold is the classic example. But at the very same time, look at oil. It's dipping down to around $67. Now, that's a classic sign of the opposite. It suggests a global slowdown is coming. The thinking is, if the economy cools off, we won't need as much energy, so demand drops and the price drops with it. And then you have the wild card, Bitcoin. It's just kind of holding steady, near $114,000. For a certain group of investors, this is their hedge against all the chaos in traditional markets. So think about that. You've got gold up, signaling fear, oil down, signaling a slowdown, and crypto just hanging in there. 3 different assets telling 3 totally different stories about what's next. So that brings us to our final domino. Section 5, living in this economy. Let's bring all this high-level stuff right down to earth. What does this whole cascade of events actually mean for you, for your retirement, for what you pay in rent, for your career? You can feel the anxiety everywhere, especially when it comes to long-term security. The retirement squeeze is absolutely real. Get this. A staggering half of all workers in the private sector have no retirement plan at all. None. And even for people who do have a plan, a full quarter of those over 50 say they now expect to delay their retirement simply because they're worried about money. And the cost of living crisis is just as intense. Just look at this one number from Santa Cruz, California. To afford a simple, modest 2-bedroom rental there, you'd need to be earning $81 an hour. That one number just makes the whole affordability crisis so incredibly, painfully clear. And this, right here, is how it all connects. Those dominoes we talked about, the ones that started falling with that one jobs report, they don't just stop in Washington or on Wall Street. They crash right into our daily lives. You feel it in the anxiety of trying to afford a home, in the challenge of saving enough for retirement, and in this growing pressure to figure out how to adopt your career for a world that's being reshaped by AI. Which leaves us with one final, really critical question to chew on. As AI continues to weave itself into pretty much every corner of our lives, the big question isn't just if we're going to adapt. We have to. The real question is how. How are we as a society going to make sure that our own human judgment, our intuition, our ability to think critically, how do we make sure all of that remains not just relevant, but absolutely essential in a world increasingly run by algorithms?